All right, so are you ready to dive into something kind of spoopy today?
Oh, always up for a good scare. Let's do it.
Today we're tackling exorcisms.
Ooh, exorcisms. Those are...
And we've got a ton of YouTube videos to unpack, everything from those, classic documentaries
Right,
to like
right.
people sharing their personal stories, even some experts weighing in. It's going to be interesting to see, who leans towards like full-on demonic possession and
Yeah.
who's maybe a little bit more, you know, skeptical about the whole thing.
I think what always gets me with these things is like exorcisms aren't just some modern horror movie invention.
Oh, for sure.
These things have been around forever, like way before even like the time of Christ, and you see them in different cultures, religions, like all over the globe.
Totally. Yeah. It's like we've always been fascinated by this idea of,
Absolutely.
like something dark taking over. But okay, so where does the Catholic Church fit into all of this? Because they seem to be, you know, pretty heavily involved in this whole exorcism thing.
Oh, the Catholic Church. They take this stuff very seriously. Like they have a whole formal rite of exorcism.
No way, really?
Oh, yeah, it goes all the way back to 1614. Can you believe that? And get this, they updated it as recently as 1999.
Wow. So it's not just some like ancient, dusty ritual. They're still like actively engaging with this.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there was even talk about Pope Francis performing an exorcism back in 2013.
Wait, hold on. Pope Francis, like the Pope?
Yeah, supposedly in St. Peter's Square.
Wow. Okay, so they definitely believe this is a real deal threat then.
Oh, yeah, they're not messing around.
But how do they even determine if someone is actually possessed? I mean, what are they like looking for?
So they have like specific criteria. One priest, Father Vincent Lampert, he was talking about some of the signs in one of these videos, and it's pretty creepy stuff.
Oh, I bet. Lay it on me.
Like people speaking in tongues, showing what seems like, crazy superhuman strength, being totally freaked out by anything holy.
Verse to it.
Yeah, averse to it. And get this, so even like levitating.
Hold up, levitating. Okay, now that's freaky. But I gotta ask, couldn't some of this stuff, like the speaking in tongues, the strength, be explained by, something else, like maybe something psychological?
That's a good point. And actually, we do have some sources that are totally on the skeptical side of things.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's this guy, Dr. Michael Sharmer. He's the publisher of Skeptic magazine. And he's basically saying that a lot of these supposed possessions, it's really just, stuff in our heads.
Psychological stuff.
Yeah, psychological stuff, cultural influences, that kind of thing. He even brings up this crazy statistic. Get this, 1 in 10 Americans say they've seen an exorcism.
1 in 10. That's a lot of people. But I mean, think about how much we see exorcisms in movies and TV.
Oh, totally.
Maybe all that's just warping our perception.
Right. Makes you wonder if people are seeing things that aren't really there or, at least not what they think they are.
Exactly. Like maybe it's just their brain trying to make sense of something weird. But speaking of weird, what about that whole speaking in tongues thing?
Oh, the glossolalia.
Yeah, glossolalia. Is it actually like a real language?
Well, some linguists have looked into it, and they say it's not.
Really?
Nope, it's basically just babble. But to someone who doesn't know any better,
Yeah.
it probably sounds pretty convincing, especially if you're already freaked out.
Oh, totally. I can see how that would happen. But okay, what about like the really extreme cases? Like that whole levitation thing. How would a skeptic explain that?
Well, they'd probably say it's either like a trick of the light, some kind of elaborate hoax, or maybe just people misinterpreting what they're seeing. They'd want to rule out all the normal explanations first before jumping to, demons and stuff.
Right. I guess that makes sense. Always got to be thorough, right? But to really get into this whole debate, I think we need to look at a specific case. And we happen to have a pretty famous one, the 1949 case of that 13-year-old boy in Maryland.
Oh, yeah, I think I've heard of that one. Isn't that the case that inspired The Exorcist?
The one and only. And man, it's got all those classic creepy details, scratching sounds in the walls, objects moving around.
Oh, spooky.
His bed shaking like crazy, and even, like, words appearing on his body.
Words? That's just creepy.
I know, right? But before we get too carried away, I think some of the sources mentioned other possible explanations for what was going on with this kid.
Well, for sure, there were definitely some other theories floating around. Like, one thing that came up was temporal lobe epilepsy.
Okay, so back up a sec. What exactly is temporal lobe epilepsy, and how does it fit into all this?
So basically, it's a type of seizure disorder, and it affects the temporal lobes of the brain, which, those are the parts that deal with things like emotions, language, memory. And what happens is, during a seizure, people with this condition can have hallucinations, weird changes in consciousness, even feel like they're, outside their own body.
So you're saying this kid's behavior, all that stuff about being possessed, maybe it was all because of these seizures?
It's possible, yeah. Especially since he was only 13, right in the middle of puberty. And that's a time when, your brain is going through a lot of changes.
Right, all those hormones and stuff. And didn't some sources mention something about trauma in the boy's life too? Could that have played a role?
Oh, definitely. Some sources hinted at possible, abuse and trauma, maybe even stemming from his relationship with his aunt, who had recently passed away. So, when you put that together with a potential medical condition, it starts to paint a much more complicated picture than just, demon-possessed kid.
It's like layers upon layers of stuff going on. So are we saying that maybe this boy wasn't possessed at all, but instead dealing with like a mix of medical and psychological issues?
Well, it's definitely a possibility, right? We can't say for sure, but these alternative explanations, they really make you think twice about jumping straight to the supernatural.
They do, they do. This case really shows how important it is to look at all the angles before, drawing any conclusions. But it also makes you wonder if the so-called cure from the exorcism, maybe that was something else entirely too.
Oh, that's an interesting thought. Like, what if it was all just the power of suggestion? Actually, we have this other case in our sources about a woman named Margaret Swift. She had chronic fatigue, and get this, a psychologist told her it was spirit possession.
He actually said that.
Yeah, and he claimed he could cure her through hypnosis.
Wow, so he basically convinced her she was possessed and then like cured her with the power of his own words.
Pretty much. But a lot of other psychologists were super skeptical about this whole thing. They were like, this is not how science works. And it could actually be harmful.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like there's a difference between exploring alternative therapies and straight up telling someone they're possessed, right?
Totally. And this all goes back to that whole back and forth between, what we believe and what we can actually prove.
That tension between faith and skepticism.
Exactly. Like, on the one hand, we have all these priests who truly believe they've seen real demonic stuff. And on the other hand, you have science and psychology saying, hold on a minute, maybe there's another explanation.
Yeah, it's like we're looking at the same puzzle, but using completely different pieces to try and put it together.
It really is. It really is.
It's a puzzle for sure. So before we were talking about how exorcisms in the Catholic Church, they seem to be having a bit of a comeback lately.
Yeah, there's definitely been an uptick in, interest and activity around exorcisms in the church. It's kind of wild, actually. There's this place in Rome, the Pontifical Athenaeum Regina Apostolorum.
Okay, try saying that 5 times fast.
Right. Well, they have a whole course dedicated to training priests in exorcism ministry.
A whole course, huh? That's pretty intense. So what do they, teach these priests? Is it all, ancient rituals and chanting, or is there more to it?
Oh, there's definitely more to it than just, memorizing some prayers and splashing holy water around, although I'm sure that's part of it.
Right, of course.
But the training's really focused on discernment, like teaching these priests how to tell the difference between, actual demonic possession and something else that might be going on.
That makes sense considering all the stuff we talk about with psychological conditions and even medical stuff that could look like possession, right? Seems like a pretty responsible approach, actually.
Oh, absolutely. The church is all about being cautious with this stuff. They really emphasize medical and psychological evaluations first and foremost.
So it's not just like someone acts a little strange and boom, they're getting an exorcism.
No, not at all. Although I'm sure there have been cases where people jumped the gun a bit, it got a little overzealous. But the official stance is you got to rule out everything else first.
So it's like a balance of faith and reason, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. They're not just throwing the Bible at every problem. But, okay, let's say you've done all the tests, ruled out everything else. What are those, red flags, those signs that maybe, just maybe, there's something demonic going on?
Yeah, what are those, telltale signs?
Well, from what I've seen in the sources, a big one is if the person starts speaking in languages they shouldn't know.
Like Latin or something?
Yeah, exactly. Or, any language we haven't been exposed to. Another one is if they suddenly have, superhuman strength.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that.
And then there's also this thing where the person might have knowledge that they couldn't possibly know, like secrets or something.
Okay, that's creepy. But, I mean, a skeptic might say, hey, maybe they just learned it subconsciously or something.
Right, for sure. Skeptics would definitely come up with alternative explanations, like maybe they heard the language somewhere and don't remember, or even that it's like an elaborate hoax.
Always got to consider those possibilities. But some of these accounts from the priests, they're pretty intense.
Oh, yeah, some of the stuff they describe is pretty wild. There's this one priest, Father Francis Tiso. He talks about this exorcism he did, and it sounds terrifying. There's a small woman, but it took 4 or 5 men to hold her down.
Whoa.
And her body was contorting and arching in this crazy way. He said it looked like she was about to levitate.
Okay, that's a little too close for comfort for me. I mean, even if you don't totally buy into the whole demon thing, you got to admit that's pretty freaky.
It definitely makes you think. I mean, these priests, they're men of faith, right? They believe in this stuff.
Right.
So it makes sense that they'd see these events through that lens. But I mean, that doesn't make them, gullible or anything.
No, no, totally. It seems like the church is trying to be responsible about it, making sure these priests are trained to, think critically and rule out other explanations.
Definitely. It's a tricky balance, being open to the possibility of the supernatural, but also not jumping to conclusions. But okay, let's say they decide an exorcism is necessary. How do they actually go about doing it?
Yeah, is it all fire and brimstone and screaming?
Well, it really depends on the priest and the specific case. Some are pretty low-key, lots of prayer and rituals. Others can get a little more theatrical.
Like those ones we saw in the videos with all the yelling and stuff, those always seemed a bit much to me.
Yeah, those more public exorcisms have gotten some criticism, actually, both from people inside the church and outside.
Really? Why is that?
Well, some people say it's exploitative, especially for people who are already vulnerable. And it can be really scary, potentially harmful.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like there's a fine line between trying to help someone and putting on a show.
Right, it's not supposed to be entertainment. The church emphasizes discretion, doing these things privately and with respect for the person involved. It's about caring for them, not, scaring the heck out of everyone.
Okay, that makes sense. But at the end of the day, do these exorcisms actually work? Do people actually get better?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We've got these stories, people saying they were freed from demons through exorcism, but there's no real scientific proof.
Right, it's all anecdotal. And even when people do get better, a skeptic might say, well, that's just the placebo effect, right? Like they believe they're possessed, they go through this ritual, and their brain just kind of tricks them into feeling better.
Exactly. The power of belief is a real thing. Whether it's faith or just the expectation of getting better, our minds can have a huge impact on our bodies.
It's crazy how connected everything is. But all this just brings us back to that same question, the one we keep coming back to. Is it faith? Is it science? Is it all in our heads?
It's a constant back and forth, isn't it? This whole deep dive has just shown how complicated this topic is. We have priests who swear they've seen real demonic activity, and we have skeptics who say it's all just misinterpretations or even hoaxes. It's a debate that's been raging for centuries, probably will for centuries more.
Yeah, it's a lot to process. But before we get too deep into like the philosophy of it all, let's switch gears a bit. We've heard from priests, experts, but what about the people who actually claim to have been possessed? What are their stories like?
Yeah, I mean, their stories are really where things get, really real.
I think it's really interesting how this whole exorcism thing seems to go through phases,
Like, it's popular for a while, then it fades away, then bam, it's back again.
Yeah, like a roller coaster or something.
Totally. And our sources actually talk about a few reasons why that might be.
Oh, really? Like what makes people suddenly super interested in exorcisms again?
Well, one thing is definitely the media. Like, remember how we talked about The Exorcist?
Oh, yeah, that movie freaked everyone out.
Totally. And that kind of thing, a big movie or a book, it just captures people's imaginations. And then suddenly, it seems like everyone's worried about demons.
It's like those ghost hunting shows, right? You watch them and then you're like, wait, is that a ghost in my closet?
Exactly. It makes you, like, hyper aware of the possibility, even if it's not really there.
Right, right. Makes sense. So media hype is one thing. What else?
Well, there's also, like, the whole cultural vibe.
Oh, okay, like if people are already into the occult and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. When there's a lot of interest in that darker side of spirituality, well, people are going to be more open to the idea of demonic possession. It just kind of goes hand in hand.
Well, if you're already looking for something, you're going to find it, even if it's not really there.
Totally. And then if you add in, like, influential people backing it up.
Like priests or even just like popular figures.
Exactly. Well, then those beliefs become even stronger. It's like a snowball effect.
But it's not just about beliefs, right? Some people are genuinely suffering, like really struggling with stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And those personal stories, they can be really heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, approach those stories with compassion. Even if we don't fully understand what someone's going through,
Right.
we can still try to empathize with them.
Definitely. Like, just because we might not believe in demonic possession doesn't mean someone else's experience isn't real to them.
Right, exactly. And maybe for some people, that belief, even if it's not what we believe, maybe it helps them cope.
It could be, yeah. Like, it gives them a way to understand what they're going through, even if it seems strange to us.
It's all about perspective, I guess.
Totally. And, this brings up another interesting point, the whole idea of faith and healing.
Oh, right, like how we were talking about the placebo effect.
Exactly. But there's also, like, a ton of stories throughout history about people being healed through, divine intervention or miracles.
It's fascinating, right? Like how much of it is belief, how much is psychology, how much is, our bodies actually responding to something we don't fully understand.
It really makes you think. And even if you don't believe in miracles, you got to admit faith can be a powerful thing.
Oh, totally. It gives people hope, strength, purpose. It can really make a difference.
Absolutely. But like with anything, there's a flip side. Faith can be misused. It can be twisted.
Right, like if it's used to manipulate people or prevent them from getting actual medical help.
Yeah, exactly. It's a slippery slope sometimes.
So I guess what we're left with is a whole lot of questions, huh?
A whole lot. I mean, this deep dive has been wild. Exorcisms, they're scary, they're confusing, they make you question everything.
They really do. I mean, do demons exist? Are exorcisms legit? Or is it all in our heads? I don't know. It kind of feels like we're right back where we started.
Yeah, maybe. But maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not about finding all the answers, but about being open to the mystery of it all, you know?
That's a good point. So, yeah, to everyone listening out there, keep those questions coming. Keep exploring. Keep an open mind. Who knows what other mysteries are out there just waiting to be uncovered?
And hey, maybe keep a nightlight on just in case.
It's probably a good idea. Until next time, stay curious.